The days are longer, the calendar is filling up, and I want to feel as good as this beautiful summer weather. That's why I've been loving Groons. It's one daily pack of gummies that covers my greens, vitamins, and minerals, and even has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber. So I don't need to juggle a complicated wellness routine on top of everything else. They taste amazing. They're easy to toss in my bag on the go. Plus, they're vegan, gluten free, and HSA, FSA eligible for reimbursement. Save up to 52% off with promo code podcast at gruns.co. That's code podcast at gruns.co.
Hi, everybody. This is Dawn Mitchell, and welcome to Dawn of Sports. Today, we're talking a little bit of hockey. We've got some sad news, and we've got a fantastic guest coming up, Alexis Pearson. If you're a follower of PWHL Minnesota Frost, she's on the broadcast team. She's fantastic to listen to. We're going to hear about her story. But first, Jim, a sad thing. I've always loved Minnesota high school hockey. Even my family back east, they all love Minnesota high school hockey. But Willard Ikola passing away. He's like the face of Minnesota high school hockey, Edina hockey. If you go to Braemar Arena, there's his statue outside. He passed away at the age of 92. And it's just so sad when one of your icons of something that makes this state so great, it's definitely a time to pause and reflect, and especially so give our condolences to his family and friends.
No doubt about it. And you and I are both transplants. I came here in 1990, and I lived for a little bit because of my parents in Indiana. So I experienced Indiana high school basketball. I covered high school football in Texas, which is it's insane, absolutely crazy down there. And when I came here, I didn't have any feeling that high school hockey in Minnesota could be like those sports, just all encompassing. Overwhelming. And I got here and I immediately found out who Mr. Ikola was and how big high school hockey in Minnesota was. And Minnesota hockey was big in part because of him and people like him. So this is, he is someone who absolutely should be remembered as someone who made this, made Minnesota high school hockey what it is, which is a phenomenon.
Yeah. And for people who are not from Minnesota and they're listening to this, be like, oh, okay, it's a high school hockey tournament. It's not. When I tell my friends back home, it's like the Bean Pot on steroids for high school hockey. They're like, what? And now when the pictures come out of how packed the XL Energy Center is, and just the enthusiasm and just the stars in the NHL that come from this thing, it's, for me, I was a quick convert into loving it. I'm like, wow, okay. And hockey is big back in New England. It really is. And high school hockey is, but not like this. And so I became a quick lover of it when I got here in 2004, and just the phenomenon of it, and also the talent that's there and the love that goes into it, and the icons and the men and women that have made this into what it is, and consistently to this day, how it is such a featured thing. So again, I love that statue. I've always noticed the statue outside of Braemar, but I think I'll go and take a little longer gander at it the next time I'm over there, and just show some more appreciation, because it's definitely a passing of a legend in many sorts here in Minnesota.
No doubt. And I think another differentiation between Minnesota high school hockey and maybe some of the other sports that are very popular in certain states across the United States is people, if you're a Texas high school football fan, if you're an Indiana high school basketball fan, for the most part, you're hoping your team makes it. You're invested in your team, your community. Minnesotans will buy tickets to the high school hockey tournament long before they have any idea who's going to be there. And they will attend
for every game.
No matter
and go
who's
to all
playing.
Of it. Right.
Yeah.
Go all day.
It's amazing.
I have friends like, oh yeah, we're going all day. We're going to take a break for, when in between games, we'll get lunch and come back. I'm like, what? They're like, oh yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. Some of my friends go standing room only. Like, that's, we don't care. We just want to be in the building. So Yes, I absolutely agree. It's just fantastic. So, so sad. But I don't know what it would be like. I don't have this in my life to help create something that lives on past you.
Yeah,
You
well, we're
know,
not going
I
to do
think
that.
that's cool.
But I mean,
Well, maybe this podcast, Jim, maybe this podcast will live on.
I mean, I will say the way we're heading with talknorth.com and some of the plans we have ahead, this could end up being, it will never be like Minnesota high school hockey. It's not that kind of thing, but
to be part of something, right?
Yeah. But really, and you think about so many people, and again, you and I've worked around the country, we've been around other influential legends. So many of them never set out to be legends. They just wanted to be good at their one thing. They wanted to be good at coaching. They wanted to elevate their sport. And then all of a sudden, because they were so good at it, they end up becoming the kind of legend that Mr. Ikola was.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said.
All right, well, let's introduce the show. This is Dawn of Sports. She's Dawn Mitchell from Fox 9. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. Alex Halligan is our producer. Best way to listen to this show or any of our many shows at TalkNorth.com. Please subscribe to your favorite podcast app. It's free. It's the easiest way to listen. You should know the lineup by now. Russo, LaPanta, Gorg, Mike Grimm, Jeff Diamond, John Krasinski, John Millay, Dawn Mitchell, Randy Shaver. We're talking to some really cool people who are going to be coming onto the podcast network here pretty soon. We have Roy Smalley, Lavelli, Neal on baseball. We have outdoor content. And again, we keep growing, and we appreciate you listening because that's enabled us to grow. Let's go ahead and thank our sponsors right now, starting with Rudy Luther Toyota.
Ready for a women-forward car dealership? Rudy Luther Toyota empowers their many women on staff in sales, management, and service. Whether you are looking for a new Toyota or pre-owned vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota has something for everyone. Every vehicle comes with a Luther Advantage. 10 cents off fuel and car wash discounts at holiday stations, Luther Advantage warranty, and 5-day return policy on pre-owned vehicles. Located just 5 minutes west of downtown Minneapolis, off 394 and General Mills Boulevard. And they're also hiring. Want to join the team but don't know where to start? Visit rudyluthertoyota.com today.
Thanks to another great Minnesota company, Minnesota Masonic Charities.
When people think of the Freemasons, they often think of secret handshakes and unusual hats, and of course, the pancake breakfast. Minnesota Masonic Charities would prefer that you think about the work that they do right here in our community. Places like the Masonic Cancer Center at the University of Minnesota or the Masonic Children's Hospital and the Masonic Home in Bloomington. They are just a few examples of the important work that the Freemasons support here in Minnesota. As part of the largest fraternal organization in the world, Masons have consistently answered the call when it comes to charitable needs. I am happy that Minnesota Masonic Charities has chosen Minnesota Bound and this podcast as a place to help spread the word. We look forward to learning so much more about their many programs here in the weeks to come.
And as for Natrium, natrium.com and the Wildflower stores, I've talked a lot about
BFF
the bombs.
time, BFF.
Yes. I've talked a lot about the bombs and the things I use, put on sore body parts. I've told you about the drinks. I've told you about the gummies, the candies, the stuff that you can use for fun, the stuff you can use for sleep. Another cool thing they have is if you're having any digestive troubles, if you're having upset stomachs, if you don't feel like you're processing things the way you should, they actually have oils that can help out with your gut health. And I think everybody's figured out that gut health leads to overall health. They have anti-inflammatory help for gut issues. They have stuff you can take that will also, by association, help with headaches and migraines. I found in my life when I have a headache, it's because of something I ate or something I didn't digest properly. I would absolutely recommend that as another way you can make yourself feel better by going to either a Natrium store, a Wildflower shop, or going to natrium.com. And now, Dawn, why don't you introduce our guest?
Yes, I would love to. I've been really looking forward to this. If you are a hockey fan, and especially so of Minnesota Frost, you have heard this woman's voice, Alexis Pearson, on the broadcasts on FanDuel Sports Network North. Also, the Frost, if you're interested in getting involved a little bit more as a player, they've just announced today a thing called the Breakthrough Cup, and it will be a tournament, a girls hockey tournament, taking place April 4th and 5th in Blaine, Minnesota. And they're trying to get young girls and women of all ages and different skill levels to pave your pathway to women's professional hockey. So we'll see how this goes. And so a woman that has not played the game, I have not played the game, but still has found a way and paved her way to being a broadcaster in professional women's hockey is Alexis Pearson. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Well, as promised, we have Alexis Pearson as our guest this week, the play-by-play extraordinaire, as I like to call her, from Minnesota Frost. We're taping this on Tuesday, so the Frost are about to play the Ottawa Charge tonight, and they go in second place in the PWHL, and this is part of a 3-game homestand to cap off the month of January. Alexis, thanks for joining us on Dawn of Sports. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. I was so happy to hear from you and get a chance to chat sports, hockey, life, whatever we talk about today. I'm looking forward to it.
You know, there is a small band of women who absolutely in this hockey world kind of, bind together. Sometimes during the football season, I don't get a chance to kind of branch out, but hockey's in my blood. Years ago, I was the studio host for the Boston Bruins and also the host of Hockey East, as I called The Beast back in the day. So whenever I see women now more and more getting into hockey, and especially the years now that I've lived in Minnesota, it just makes me so happy. It is a small band of women, though, isn't it? Are you finding it? I know it's growing, but it's still a little small, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, and first of all, you come from Boston, and much like Minnesota, hockey never leaves your blood if you're a Boston hockey person. So it's always fun to meet people from that area as well because they love hockey just as much as we do. And yeah, we've got our squad here, right? And you've got your friends you see frequently at the rink and the people you frequently get a chance to talk to. But it still isn't as big as someday I hope it is, but it is growing, and it's even grown a lot since even when I first knew I wanted to do this when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old. In that, 10, 15 years that have gone on since then, and since I got through college, it has changed so much in the best way possible. And I'm optimistic that in another 5, 10, 15 years, it doubles and triples in size. So it's been really fun to see the way things have grown. But I'm really thankful for the group of women in the hockey world that I get a chance to talk to and see frequently, because it makes going to the rink a lot more fun.
Oh, it sure does. And before we get more into the team this year and how the league is going just in its second year, I want to give you a little bit of sunshine on your life here. You are a homegrown talent, and you, like me, played soccer growing up from what I hear. So you're from, you went to South St. Paul High School, right? Went to St. Cloud. So born and raised Minnesotan. So to be able to do this in your own backyard, so to speak, is extra special. What was it like when, I know you got into sports, and I think a friend of mine, Heather Rule, said you also like theater. I'm like, I think she might be my BFF now. I might be pushing Heather aside. No, just joking, Heather, just joking. But how is that to be able to do all this here in your own home?
Yeah, it's amazing. And what's funny is, one of the questions I get asked the most is people are like, oh, you must have played hockey growing up, because A, the assumption is every Minnesotan has played hockey. And B, if you're broadcasting hockey, you must have played it, right? Because typically you end up broadcasting a sport that you played or have some kind of tight connection with. And the truth is, I never played organized hockey. I grew up skating like every Minnesotan did. My dad built a hockey rink in our backyard every winter. And, I played pickup hockey and pond hockey and all that fun stuff, but I never played organized hockey. And quite frankly, I was a terrible athlete. Even the sports I did play, I didn't play them very well. I just always loved sports and loved watching them. And hockey was the one that I clung to at a very young age. And the Wild came into existence when I was just 5 years old. So I kind of grew up with the Minnesota Wild as they started their, trek in the NHL. So it was really fun watching that team grow as I grew in age as well. And then I went to St. Cloud State, where hockey's really big. And I just continued to grow my love for hockey. And I knew from a very young age that that's what I wanted to do, was broadcast hockey. And I knew that if I wasn't going to play the sport, I had to work really hard at understanding it so that I could be, equal in talent with some of these people who have played it. And it's been a fun challenge. And I've really enjoyed the chance to be a part of the hockey broadcasting community in a place that hockey is so well loved and known.
I think people should know that the amount of reporters and news writers and whatever, many of them didn't play the sport. Some did, some did, but you don't have to actually have played the sport to cover it well. And you're one of those people that prove it. When you call a game for the Frost, first of all, I just want to give you your flowers in terms of it's very enjoyable, but the knowledge comes out. So just because you weren't physically on an organized team playing pond hockey, playing backyard hockey, sometimes you learn the rules the hard way, don't you?
Yeah, that's the truth. And my sister, she's one tough cookie, and she'd beat me up out on the rink. And my dad, played hockey growing up, so he was very good. So I'd be skating with people who were very talented, even though I didn't possess that same talent. But I always had a passion for it. And I've always believed, and I've always told people that you don't, have to have that experience of playing the sport to be able to broadcast it well. If you have the passion and the talent and the respect to get to where you are, that's going to get you just as far as having played the sport. Now, of course, there's certain backstories I can't share because I never played the sport, and certain things that only the athletes who've played it can talk about. But I find other ways to talk about the sport and other ways to express what's happening and what's going on and why a certain thing is difficult and why a certain thing isn't. And I've just always believed that if you work hard and you're passionate and have fun when you're doing it, people will enjoy listening to you. And I believe that that's the case for a lot of people. Like you said, there's a lot of people out there who probably think the same thing about me, that, they must have played that sport. And they didn't. They just work really hard and they really love what they do. And that comes across in the way that they share stories on TV.
I've told this story before, and it was years ago. And I was covering the Green Bay Packers when I lived in Milwaukee, and there was a player, and he was frustrated. He was very kind, a nice guy. He was an offensive lineman, and I'd asked him about, the amount of sacks and the coverage that was going on. And he said to me, he was frustrated, and he goes, "Have you ever played professional football?" And I said, "Not since the sex change." And I'm not being flippant. Like I have trans friends, but they laugh too at that story. Cause I'm in that situation. Like, no, I'm a female and I have not played professional football. So he looked at me and he was like, "I am such a jerk." Right? Because he got it.
Yeah.
Like he was just frustrated. And I said, "Look, you're just frustrated. I know you weren't mad at me, but no, I've never played professional football, but I do understand it. And I get it. And my question was legit. And I asked it in a nice professional way, but I'm also not thinking that you're mad at me. People are like, "Oh, he's a jerk." I go, "He's not a jerk." I know when I played sports, if someone came into my locker room and started asking me basically what happened on the line, because of 9 sacks is a lot, you ask it in a nice way, they're going to get mad. So there is that level of, then they earn that respect, I knew he was angry and not at me, and vice versa. So there's such a different respect that goes on when they know, but they still don't want you to ask that question,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why that's my favorite. I know people don't necessarily, they don't say it in the way of a compliment, but that's how it comes across, is when people are shocked that I never played the sport, because to me, that means I'm doing my job really well. If you listen to me and you think, "Wow, she really understands the game," or "Wow, she really articulated that well. She must have been in that position before," or "She must have played that kind of game before," and that's what you think when you listen, that means I'm doing something right. So that's always my favorite compliment or favorite comment from people, is their surprise when they find out that I never played hockey. And like you said, there's a certain level of respect when people know that and still understand. They understand this sport really well. They do their job very well. We had a coach, the coach for the Minnesota Frost. We always talk to the coaches before games, and we were talking to him the other day, and we were talking about one of his rookies. And he said to Clay and I, my broadcast partner, he said, "What do you guys think of her up there? What's your assessment?" And to me, that was, and he was saying it as like he wanted, he knew what he saw, but he wanted to see what someone else watching the game saw. And the fact that he wanted our opinion on a player in that regard, it meant so much to me. I'm like, wow, we're, quote unquote, just two broadcasters. And you as a coach want to know our opinion of how one of your players is playing. And it's just like you said, it's those moments where you get that respect from the coaches, from the players, where they see you as just another hockey mind or just another football mind, and you understand the game like they do. That is the ultimate respect and kind of what you really hope, the kind of situations you hope to be in these conversations with coaches and players and GMs. And it's really special moments when you can have those kind of conversations.
Well, especially so when they get to the professional level, they know, and I say this all the time, professional athletes, Olympic athletes, they know when they've messed up.
Yep.
And if you know that they messed up, you're on that same level, right? And if you don't ask it, they're like, either you didn't see it or you're just too afraid to ask me. It's how I always say it's not what you ask, it's how you ask it. That is the key. You don't want to, send a softball, but you have to ask that question. You have to ask, like, what went wrong on the power play, or what went wrong in the third period? Why are there so many odd man rushes? If you don't ask that, and there was a gazillion of them, you look like you're not doing your job, and they know it, right?
Yeah.
They know it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's about the fans. We're projecting a story to the fans. We're telling the story of the game, the story of these players, the story of these coaches. And at times it does get a little uncomfortable. Now, our job is easier in sports than it is in news or politics, where you're really talking about hard hitting stuff all the time. But there's still moments in sports where, like you said, someone has a really bad game, or you have an unexpected playoff loss, like the Vikings against the Rams, right? You have these moments where everybody's angry, and yet you have to be the one to ask that question so that you can project that story to the fans, because everyone at home wants to know. So it's not about you always and your comfort level, or even the athletes and the coach's comfort level. That's part of what your job is. As fun as this job is, there is hard times and times where it's like, man, I don't want to have this conversation. I don't want to ask this question. But like you said, if you ignore certain things, then it looks like you just don't understand the story of the game, or don't understand the consequences of what just did or didn't happen. And that comes across to the fans, and they're thinking, well, why didn't they ask about that? Or that was the reason they lost. Why didn't they point that out? And then you look like you're not doing your job well. So it's not always easy, but it is important, because the fans at home want answers to these questions too. And it's our job to ask them and get those answers.
So let me back up a little bit. I really want to give a shout out to St. Cloud State, because I think Husky Productions and everything they do for sports and covering, and not just hockey, it's a great institution for learning. But I'm saying, if you're in the sports world and you get to get into that program, the people that I've met, Katie Storm, she's one person, Anna Baining, who's just a former intern of mine, they come out so well prepared to get into broadcasting or writing. What is so special about that program, and what did you love the most?
Well, without fail, I believe that without St. Cloud State, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And that's not to discredit what I believe, all the things that I think I do well as a broadcaster, or the hard work I've put in to get where I am. But at the end of the day, I truly don't think I would be here if I wouldn't have picked St. Cloud as a school to go to and as a program to be involved in, because they set you up so well for success. I mean, first of all, you're using professional grade equipment. I mean, there's a TV station on campus. You're using all the equipment you're going to go out and use in the real world. So you already are steps ahead, even before. I mean, I interned at what was at the time Fox Sports North when I was in college. And even by the time I got there, I was like, I know how to use all this stuff. Now it's just about being able to do it in, a real life professional setting. But I understand this equipment. I know the terminology that these people are speaking to me and talking about. And so that right there, you're already years ahead of so many people coming out of college, because you're essentially doing what the professionals are doing, just at a little less stress and expectations, because it's in college. And on top of that, you've got professors teaching you who are former news reporters and anchors and people who've worked in the sports world and done all of this stuff. And it's just incredible. There's so many opportunities. I mean, I did everything. We had a comedy show that I did. I did news. I did sports. We had a drama gossip show that I did for a little bit. I mean, I did everything. There was so many options of, what do you want to do? What do you want to try? Do you want to do camera? Do you want to be on air? And by the time I graduated from St. Cloud State, my resume was longer than some people's after 5 years of work in the professional world. And it's just incredible, the opportunities they set up for you. And I can't give enough thanks and credit to what that school did for me. And anybody who asks me, oh, my kid wants to go into sports broadcasting, or my kid wants to go into news, and they're looking at colleges, I stop them and I say, St. Cloud State, go tour the school, go look at the TV, studio, and you're going to fall in love, and they're going to be so successful right out of the gate just because of what that school offers. And I can't say enough good things about it. And you will run into Huskies everywhere. It is true. People joke about it, but it is the truth. You will run into a Husky every single broadcasting journalism area you go. Somebody will be a Husky. Maybe they graduated 40 years ago. Maybe they graduated 2 years ago, but there are Huskies everywhere. And that just goes to show how incredible that school is for that degree and what they can do for you to set you up for success.
And the best thing is, and you mentioned it, like that you have this experience more than people in the working world sometimes, but it's also for you to decide what you want to do.
Yes.
Because sometimes, like, I don't know, maybe I want radio, maybe I want TV, maybe I want TV news, which is very different from doing live games. Yep. As we know, like when you're in college, you don't know. You're like, this is not, I don't know if I really like this. So you learn that before you actually have to pay some bills. That's what I always tell people.
Yes.
Try to figure it out, do internships or do what you can, because there's so many different options in the broadcasting world. And once your paycheck depends on where you live and your job, you don't want to be stuck in like, I really don't like radio, or I like radio more than TV. I have friends like, I got into TV and I realized I didn't like that. I'd rather be in a radio station where it's a little more chill, or it's a little more this, or, where you have more time just to kind of free talk, kind of like we do here on a podcast. So there's just so many different ways around it. And I just think that school gives you that opportunity to figure out who you are in the scheme of broadcasting too, before you have to go out into the real world. So
it's so true. I mean, it's hard to switch jobs once you get out of the real world. And like you said, you're then balancing what you're making in income, you're balancing benefits, you're balancing location. When you're in college, who cares if you want to move around? Try this, try that, do that for a few weeks. And I mean, I'm hyping up the broadcasting program, but they have a great newsprint program. They have a great radio program. I have friends who did all of it. I did the newspaper for years when I was at St. Cloud State. I knew I didn't want to go into, print news. I knew that wasn't the path I wanted, but I thought it was fun. It was a great experience. I got to work on my writing, and it was a little different setting from working in TV. So there's so many options out there, and you truly can try them all. And you might be surprised what you end up falling in love with or what you end up being good at. It might be a little different than what you expected, but at least you know that leaving college, you have a better basis for what you might want to do when you get out into the real world.
How did you first get into, I know when I first found out who you were and about, you were working on the radio side for the Wild in the radio network. Cause I'm always like, radar is out. Female. Yes. Like I know who that is, but I don't really know her. I kind of follow everyone because the more women I see out and about, it makes me happy. So when you first got your foot in the door and you learn everything behind the scenes that way, what can you tell us and for our listeners how you got your foot in the door there and what made you want to then go into broadcasting hockey?
Yeah, so my story is kind of a funny one, and I will make it as condensed as I can because it can drag on if I really get into it. But it is a funny story. So like I said, I went to St. Cloud State, and the big program at St. Cloud for broadcasting is Husky Productions, which mostly does the men's and women's hockey games, but they also dabble in some other stuff. But Husky Productions is a big commitment. You have to commit to everything on the schedule, and it's actually a paid job compared to the other things at the station. So it's a big commitment, and it's more of a job than it is anything else. And when I first started at St. Cloud, I kind of wanted to try everything, and I didn't want to tie myself down to just one side of the TV, what they had to offer. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to hold off on Husky Productions, even though hockey is where my heart is. I want to try everything and just see what I like, what's out there. And so by the time I got to be a senior, I still hadn't officially tried Husky Productions. And you have to audition for it. You have to get selected. It's like I said, it's basically like a job. And the day before auditions, I was committed to trying it. I was like, I'm going to do it. It's my senior season or my senior year. I want to get that experience under my belt. And right before auditions, I called my mom crying and I said, Mom, I don't know what it is, but something is telling me not to go to this audition. Like, I don't know what it is, but I feel like I shouldn't do it. And she said, well, if you think you shouldn't do it, then don't do it. And I said, okay. And I didn't go to the audition. Well, the next day, the person who runs Husky Productions at St. Cloud State called me and he said, I have a potential job opportunity for you if you're interested. I said, yeah, what is it? And he said, well, there's a National Women's Hockey League that's getting a team in Minnesota next season, and they're looking for broadcasters. And he said, everyone I think of that would be good for this is already committed to Husky Productions. And I thought of you because you're not doing Husky Productions, that it might be a good fit for you.
Wow.
And I said, okay, great. Pass along their info. Let me connect with them. And so I did. And I got the role as a broadcaster for the women's team in the NWHL. That was back in 2019. And at that time, it was unpaid. I was doing it to get the experience, and I was still in my last year of college. So, I was like, all right, let's just get some reps under my belt. The very first game that I did with, at the time, it was the Minnesota Whitecaps. The person who I normally was going to call the games with that year was not able to do that first game because of their work commitment she had. So I got paired up with Kevin Fallness for the first game of the season.
Wow.
And we broadcasted the game together. And it was great. It was actually my first time meeting him in person. I obviously knew who he was because I'm a big Wild fan, and it was really fun. Well, the next day, Kevin Gorg, who our friendship goes way, way back, I consider him like a second father to me. I love KG. KG texts me and he says, Kevin Fallness wanted your phone number. Is that okay if I pass it along to him? And I said, sure. I had no idea what it was going to be about. Did I say something wrong on air the other day he wants to yell at me about? What could he possibly need?
Right.
And at this time, it was the first week of the NHL season as well. So he texts me, Fallness does, and he says, hey, I need somebody to work for me at the radio network, running the audio board and helping with interviews and all that stuff. Would you be willing to work for me? Can you be at the next Wild game? And they already had played a game this week. And he said, I just need you to commit to all the home games for the season. Would you be willing to do that? And I said, yeah, because working for the Wild has been my dream. I didn't care whether it was TV, radio, anything. I just wanted to work for the Wild. And I said, sure. So I showed up to the next game, which was a few days after that. And I started working in radio, which I hadn't even touched in college. I had no interest in radio. But I wanted to work for the Wild. And so I started working for the NWHL as a broadcaster and the Minnesota Wild Radio Network all in the same week. And I've been doing that for 7 years now, and I haven't looked back. So something in my gut told me not to do the Husky Productions, and lo and behold, another opportunity. And then another one after that presented itself that same week that led me to where I am today.
Oh my goodness. So I'm glad you told me that, because for anyone listening out here, I firmly believe in following your gut. I always have. My mom told me to do that ever since I was in second grade. Like, if you get that feeling, that's your intuition, that's your gut, you got to follow it. And whenever things did not turn out really well, thank gosh, nothing disastrous. But so the number one lesson is follow your gut, your intuition. Number two, any opportunity that comes to you, even though it's not convenient, you say yes.
Yes.
You said yes. Every time you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if he's going to call me, but because some people would say, oh, I'm not gonna call him or not pick up the phone. You took the opportunity. You just said yes, and look where you are. That's amazing.
Yeah, and especially when you're that young, it's like you have no reason to say no yet, right? You don't have any leverage with pay. You don't have any leverage with opportunity. You're just looking to get your foot in the door. So at that point, when they said, well, it's unpaid, but you'll be broadcasting, professional women's hockey league, I thought, cool, all right, I'll take it. I'm still in school anyway. I've got other jobs, other ways I can make money for now. And I'll just do this. And then it led to the Wild, which was a paying job. And then eventually that women's hockey league turned into a paying job as the league got bigger and better and more opportunities arose. So if I would have said no to that, I never would have ended up working for the Wild, and I never would have ended up working in the PWHL as it is today, broadcasting games on FanDuel Sports North. So it's incredible the way things can lead you. And I always think back to that phone call with my mom, and I was so committed to going to that audition until that day, and something felt like it wasn't for me. And I ended up, my gut ended up being correct. And I've gotten so many fun opportunities aside from that because of it. And I probably wouldn't be here without that decision and that phone call.
Oh, that's so amazing. Because, if you reached out to some friends, they'd be like, you're crazy. You got to go to Husky Productions. And you're like, hey, listen, I love Husky Productions, but I don't know. So listen to your mom's advice. Always listen to your mom's advice.
Yes, mom always knows best.
Your mom does. Mom knows best. I don't know why. Like, and the older I get, and I'm hoping this is a good thing, I'll say something. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm my mother.
all the
I
time.
thought
I
I
will
would never
call my
say
mom. I'll
that.
be like, Mom, yeah, I'm like, Mom, I just did the most you thing just now. And she's like, oh my goodness. Things I used to make fun of her for. I'm like, Mom, I do it
Yes.
all now. So you knew something way before I knew it. You were right, way ahead of your time.
So if we're the mom out there to any listeners, follow your gut and work hard and don't say no to an opportunity. You know, I think I've said it on earlier podcasts when people ask how I got to mine. I'm like, like when I was at Nesson and I was behind the scenes and they're like, hey, can you go to the Providence Bruins and turn a story? And I'm thinking, yeah, sure, right? I figured I'd hand it off or someone else would voice it and put it on there, And they're like, well, no, we want you to voice it. And can you front it like a 15-second in and out? And I'm like, okay. They go live. And I'm like, what? Okay. Like everything was okay. And then you look at how naive you were. Like that was the opportunity of a lifetime, but you're so scared you don't know. You just say yes.
Right.
And next thing you know, the door is open. You're like, you just keep saying yes. Even if you're not ready, get prepared. You say yes, and then you get prepared. So
most of the things I've ended up doing in regards to my work life has been saying yes without knowing anything and then just giving it your best shot. And then you just go from there and you figure it out on the fly, because if you're determined enough and talented enough, you'll get there eventually. You might not have the answer right away, but you'll figure it out and it'll turn out all right either way.
Right. Or you call up Gorgie or you call up Kevin Fallness and you're like, okay, I got this. How do I do it? What do I do? And they're like, great. Because people want to help. They want to tell you, but you've never turned down the opportunity. So my question is, when they finally said, hey, listen, I think they're going to form the PWHL. And this is going to be pro, and like we're doing X, Y, and Z, and now they're going to be on FanDuel, or before that was Bally Sports.
Yep.
I know that sometimes they're not pinch me moments till after, right? Because you're like, because there's so much unknown. But how was that all for you? And how has it been for you? What's been the most fun? I know it's a big, huge question all rolled into one.
Yeah, so it was kind of crazy because, like I said, I was covering the NWHL back in 2018, 2019. That was my first season. And the NWHL had been around for a few years, but Minnesota was not a part of it. They were an independent team. And then they joined. And so I started broadcasting when they came into the league. And then the NWHL redesigned into the PHF, the Premier Hockey Federation. But it was basically the same everything, just a different name. They just wanted to rebrand and kind of have a bit of a facelift to what they were doing. And so once they switched to the PHF, they changed the way they broadcasted. We had COVID hit in between that, and everything got a little wonky. So then we were broadcasting the games remotely from a studio in Florida, believe it or not, even though Florida didn't have a hockey team. That's where they sent us. So we were in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, broadcasting the games remotely. And instead of working for just the Minnesota team, we were all broadcasters for the league. So we had a variety of different games that we were covering. And at that point, we were on Twitch, which is typically a gamer streaming service. We were using it for hockey, which it was very fun. It was unique, but it was fun. And then for a while at the end of the PHF, we were on ESPN Plus or ESPN2 at times, especially for big games. And that was really fun, getting a chance to be a part of that. But still, we weren't really at the forefront of people's attention as far as, viewers. And so after the last PHF season ended, which was 2 years ago, I left Fort Lauderdale for the end of the season. I went home and summer comes. It's like mid-July. And all of a sudden I see a tweet saying that the PHF is folding. And I had no idea this was happening. I had no clue. Nobody knew. Like our producers emailed us and were like, we didn't know. So it just kind of happened. And so the PHF folded and I thought, oh my God, am I like going to have a job after this? Like what comes next? Are they doing something new? What's going to happen to the league, to our jobs, to these players? And sure enough, a few weeks go by, or about a month, and they announced that the PWHL is happening. And it's a new thing. It's not affiliated with the NWHL or the PHF. And basically, they start this new league. And we basically all have to, reapply as broadcasters. So, it wasn't guaranteed that I had my position. I had to connect with new people and reach out to them and re-pitch myself and say, hey, I've been doing this for a while. I'd love to keep doing it. And so I got connected with them, and everything happened within the span of 6 months. So the PHF folded in, like I said, it was like July. And then the PWHL played their first game on New Year's Day that following winter. So from the time the league folded to the time it started, it was about 6 months. And I found out 3 weeks before game one that I got the job. So then in 3 weeks, I had to cram all this knowledge of all these new teams. And a lot of the players were the same players that played in the league before, but you're learning new
Right.
teams, you're learning a new league, a new system, working with new people. And so in a 3 weeks time span, all of us found out we got this job and we got to get ready for game one. And it was so cool to be a part of that first game. And when Minnesota played, this is still my favorite memory to get to the last part of your question here, is when Minnesota played that first game at home at the XL Energy Center. They had already played one game on the road, but it was their home opener. And
Yeah.
I get up to the booth and we were getting reports that we might break the US record for most fans at a game. And I'm getting
Yeah.
chills thinking about it right now because this is still one of the highlights of my career so far. And we're like, no way, that's crazy. Like, if we really get that many people, this is going to be awesome. And the fans start to file in and you're looking around at everybody and you're thinking, this might happen. Like, we might break the record. And when they announced to the fans that the record for most fans at a professional women's hockey game in the US, the fans went nuts. And you're sitting up in the booth, and for the most part, when you're broadcasting, Dawn, I'm sure you know this, you kind of turn your emotions off because you're there to work. Even when you love the game or love the team, you kind of are in a different zone when you're working.
Yeah.
And when they announced that, and you're watching the fans go nuts and you're trying to broadcast this energy across to fans over the TV, I was like almost in tears. I'm like, I got to pull it together. Like, this is one of the coolest moments ever. And I'm trying to share this with the fans at home. And that's still, I still think back to that day. And Minnesota won that game 3-0. It was, when that day was over, I went home and I thought, this league is different. This is for real. Whatever they're doing here, this is going to be different than any women's league we've seen before. This is legit. And so far, they've continued to prove that what they're doing is working. Fans are loving it. The players are loving it. The broadcasts are going well. You know, fans are tuning in at home. They're showing up at games. And that's still, after a year and a half now of covering this league, that first game at the XO Energy Center, that's going to be tough to beat as far as the highlight of my career. At least for now, that one is definitely at the top.
You know, I it's one of those amazing games all around. Like, you're recounting it and I'm still getting like all the chills again, you know,
Yeah.
going like, oh my gosh. Cause if I recall, we had her on the podcast the next day. Grace Zumwinkle got the hat trick
Yep.
in that game, correct?
Yeah,
And
she did.
and she said when she came on there, she's like, I've played hockey on all different levels. And that was right up there with like the Olympics, like that, just that atmosphere, you know, at the X in your hometown, just amazing. So, you know, as a broadcaster, like, you're right, like, you want to display the emotion, but you don't want to get swept up in it. So you're kind of like being pushed and pulled, and the fact that you still can recount that to this day, that's why we do the job, right? Because
Yes.
you don't want to be so far removed that you don't feel anything. That's when you gotta like hang it up. That's what I say, you know. But that's amazing. That's something you always remember.
Yeah, and that was one of the hardest things for me when I got into sports, because I grew up a diehard sports fan. And when I say diehard, I mean tears were shed. I would be devastated for days if, you know, the Wild didn't win a game. Like, everything was so serious and so intense to me when it came to sports. And I wanted to get into sports because I thought, well, it won't feel like a job, because I love watching hockey and I love watching sports so much that it's just going to be the best thing ever. And as I started working in the professional world, I realized how tough it was to reel in your emotion at times, because you're so used to being a fan. You know, as I was in my early stages of my career, I always say I'm a fan first. And that's what I think is important, because that's how my passion is broadcasted. That's, you know, how I try to make games fun, is coming from the perspective of a fan, because at the end of the day, that's what we all are. We just love the game. But it was hard at times to reel in your emotions and say, you're here to work. You're not here to be frustrated or upset or overly excited. You know, they always say it's a working press box, right? So it's like, you're there, you're focused on the game itself. And so when those big moments do happen and that emotion seeps through, it's really magical moments, because you don't have those moments as much when you're working in the career like this as you did when you were a fan. And I still can, it feels like a dream, almost like being up in that press box and watching the fans below you. It's hard to explain to somebody who's never been in a press box before, but those magical moments in a game, in a season, when you're watching it unfold in front of you, it's hard to explain, but it is one of the best feelings. And it's those kind of days that you go home and say, I am so glad this is what I get to do for work, because that you got to be a witness to so many people's magical moments that day. And it's so much fun to watch and be a part of it.
Oh, Alexis Pearson, you're just a joy to talk to. I'm smiling just hearing all this. I'm like, yes, that's exactly it. Yes, that's right. That's right. And I used to love listening to you on Bar Down Beauties too.
Yeah.
So everything that you do, it's just pure joy. You can tell that you love it and you can tell that you're passionate about it. And as we leave here now, if there is maybe one or two things not even the young women or young girls, even the young boys, like they're coming to you and asking, how did you get into it? This is what I want to do. What is the one piece of advice you would give? And is it the same as the best piece of advice that you received?
That's a really good way to phrase that question. I would say the best piece of advice I can give would be to say yes to everything, especially when you're early on, because you don't know where certain opportunities are going to go. You don't know which connections are going to get you to where you ultimately want to go. And to me, when I think back to all the things I've done, and like I said, I've been working in the professional world for 7 years now. Including that last year of my college career where I was working in professional sports. And I think back to all the things I said yes to, all the connections I've made, and the amount of times I was surprised that a certain thing led where it did. And you just never know. So that would be the biggest piece of advice. And secondly, I would say, especially when it comes to sports, and like we've said, working in news is different than working in politics, which is different than all those different areas of TV and journalism. But sports specifically, most of us who get into sports, if not all of us, it's because we love a certain game, love sports in general, whatever that may be. Don't lose that passion as a fan. It's just a different way you project it. And when you can project your passion to your viewers, whether it's over TV or if you're a writer and your readers are reading your articles or you're over radio, don't lose that passion, because at the end of the day, that's what we all are, is we're just fans. We just love the game. And just because I'm up in a broadcast booth with a headset on telling you what's going on doesn't mean that I'm any less of a fan. That's why I do it, because I love the game. So say yes to everything and don't lose your fandom. Just learn how to project it in a different way, because that's what we all are at the end of the day.
Amen, sister. Woo! Alexis Pearson, if you're out there listening and you're like, oh my gosh, now I have to listen to this woman, you can find her on all the PWHL Minnesota Frost broadcasts on FanDuel Sports Network North, and look for everything, because she's behind the scenes at the Wild Radio Network.
Yep.
You never know where she's going to pop up now. So Alexis, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy today. You've got the game coming up, but I just really want to thank you. This was awesome.
Well, Dawn, thank you for reaching out to me. And it was so fun getting to connect with you. And I hope this is the start of a long friendship. Like you said, we got to find our other women in this career and hang on tight, because it's a special breed of people who work in this career. And I really enjoyed the chance to get to talk with you today.
Aw, right back at you. Thanks so much.